As we looked in our last hour at some of the victims, you're talking about an 88-year-old man, a grandfather, a 76-year-old man sitting in a wheelchair, a married couple whose toddler was under their bodies after they were killed and now will be raised by her grandparents. Whatever this young man's grievance was, he believed that he had the right somehow to go buy a high-powered AR-15 style rifle and indiscriminately shoot into a crowd of innocent people watching a parade.
Let's bring in former U.S. Senator, now an NBC News and MSNBC political analyst, Claire McCaskill. Also the professor at Princeton University, Eddie Glaude Jr., and U.S. national editor at the Financial Times, Ed Luce. And Jonathan Lemire is still with us as well.
So Claire McCaskill, there's just no excuse for this. This doesn't have to happen. Our schools don't have to be killing fields. Our country music concerts and our churches, our synagogues don't have to be killing fields. And for God's sake, our 4th of July parades don't have to be killing fields. And yet there is one party who refuses to move to get weapons of war off the street. I want to get your reaction to something Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said about the shooting. Of course, it's been 2 weeks since Congress passed a bipartisan gun law, and yet the Highland Park mass shooting is renewing calls from Democrats for more action. Here, take a look at what Mitch McConnell said.
I think yesterday's shooting is another example of what the problem is. The problem is mental health and these young men who seem to be inspired to commit these atrocities. So I think the bill that we passed targeted the problem.
Okay.
Well, Claire, the bill that they passed was a small step, and let's all salute. You know how hard it is to get bipartisan legislation through Congress. So let's salute Democrats and Republicans for figuring that out. But it was just a small step. But I'm curious your reaction to these calls that this is being caused by mental health problems when Great Britain has similar mental health problems to we do, and they don't have mass shootings. We've had over 300 mass shootings this year alone.
Yeah, let's talk about high-capacity magazines. Let's talk about zeroing in on the type of weapons and these magazines that are designed only for one thing, Joe. And you've talked about it over and over again. That's to kill people quickly. To kill people quickly. Now, if you have a home intruder, you don't need to fire 70 rounds. Snipers fire 70 rounds if they want to commit mass slaughter. High-capacity magazines are very handy if you want to slaughter school children as they sit in their desks. Listen, I want to tell all my former colleagues, you can go up against the NRA and live to tell about it. I won many elections in Missouri, which is not a liberal place, with an F from the NRA. With an F from the NRA. You can do it because most Americans want to stop this madness. And I think Democrats are right now. They should go after these weapons of war, these high-capacity, high-powered rifles, and most importantly, these high-capacity magazines. There is no reason that any sportsman needs a high-capacity magazine to shoot deer, varmints, or feral pigs.
No, they are not needed for that. In fact, you can use a shotgun for that. Ed Luce, you write in the Financial Times about America's unending horizon of mass shootings. Quote, guns do not kill people, insists the U.S. gun lobby. It is people who do that. Reducing Americans' access to firearms would rob them of their constitutional right to self-defense. Picking holes in such reasoning is easier than shooting fish in a barrel, not least in its distortion. of America's Second Amendment. But reason is no match for a lobby that can end political careers and make or break presidential campaigns. The right question is not when will this end, but where will it lead? Contrary to received wisdom, it has not always been simple to buy a gun in the United States. Until the mid-20th century, judicial consensus interpreted the Second Amendment as guaranteeing the right of states to defend against federal tyranny or imperial revenge. Yet it is now an article of faith among conservative jurists, including two-thirds of the U.S. Supreme Court and most of America's state legislatures. Bit by bit, but with increasing speed, what remains of U.S. gun control is being demolished. This new age of unregulated guns coincides with the growing militarization of U.S. society and equivalent of a Cold War in domestic politics. It's not just that America has more guns around, they are more lethal than they used to be. And Ed, again, what's different about America compared to most countries in the world? This.
Yeah, this. I mean, as you know, and as Joe mentioned earlier, the mental health problems are just as prevalent in other democracies, but guns are not. It's really very, very simple. The only country in Europe that has a really high gun homicide rate is Switzerland, because Switzerland has a citizens' army in which every male, is allowed to keep a gun at home. Because the guns are available at home, Switzerland's otherwise very low crime rate is extremely high for gun homicides. So, this mental health red herring, and I think it is a red herring, has to be knocked on the head. I no objection to, well, I was pleased to see a bipartisan bill pass with this red flag and background check for 18 to 21-year-olds, but it's like having cancer diagnosed and prescribing an aspirin. This is nowhere near enough to tackle this epidemic.
Eddie, there are, of course, mental health questions. We looked at this long list of red flags that were raised by his family, even calling the police to the house, no charges pressed. This internet history that became immediately available just out in the open on YouTube and Discord and other social media channels, where he fantasized about violence and school shootings and made rap videos in classrooms after a school shooting, all of these things. But at the end of that story, in all these cases, whether we're talking about Highland Park or Buffalo in that supermarket or Uvalde, there is a high-powered semi-automatic rifle at the end of that story. And that's just the truth, and that's just the reality, and that's the way these stories always end.
You're absolutely right, Willie. And I think we need to understand that these weapons of war are at the heart of the problem. But if we pan out just a bit, mental health is a shorthand for what I take to be a whole host of problems, right? Many of these are disaffected white men. Many of them feel alienated. They find themselves in these online communities, 4chan and the like. So part of what I've been trying to think about as I'm trying to make sense of all of this is it feels as if the fabric of our society has frayed, it's torn. And these mass shootings are an indication, not just some, isolated crazy person, but are in some ways an indication of how something has broken in our society, our connection, our relationship to each other. Some people might want to appeal to the culture wars, but there's something deeper here that we have to wrap our minds around. And the weapons of war is the point of entry, but there's something else happening here that we have to begin to talk about, and that is our relationship to each other and these young men coming of age in a society that seems to me to be broken.
Well, Jonathan Lemire, there are young men coming of age in the United States, in Britain, across the world. And what separates the United States from most industrialized nations is the fact that 18-year-old kids can walk in and get AR-15s. That we have a political organization that is promoting the selling of weapons of war, because The gun industry makes the most money there. But it's pretty simple. I mean, it really is. This is simple.
It is.
Let me just say that. People are dying because young men, at least in these last shootings, who may be suicidal, who may be suffering mental problems, can walk into a gun store and get a weapon of war that, again, as I've said before, is more powerful than what we gave our soldiers, what we gave our Marines in the jungles of Vietnam. And so we've had these weapons used in Boulder, in Sandy Hook, 27 lives, in San Bernardino, AR-15 used, 14 lives, Pulse nightclub, AR-15 used, 49 lives, at the Texas church slaughter, 26 lives, at the Las Vegas country music concert, 58 music fans slaughtered, of course, the Buffalo tragedy, people going to supermarkets slaughtered by AR-15s, Uvalde, the little children again slaughtered by AR-15s, Parkman, and now this 4th of July parade. Again, this is happening because people with mental health problems can walk into a gun shop and can get a weapon of war. And again, I want to say again, I've been talking about this in Sandy Hook, and the lies that are told by the gun lobby. First of all, there's something ominous, like, hey, the feds are coming to get you. You better have an AR-15, which I've always said is the stupidest argument at all. Because if the feds are coming to get you, that AR-15 is not going to stop the feds. So just, first of all, that's a stupid argument. Just logically, that's a stupid argument. But secondly, if you get past the argument of why people need an AR-15, get past that, people saying they need it to shoot soldiers or police officers coming to their front door during an apocalypse. If you get past that, then they'll say, it's great for killing varmints, or I need it to protect around this. No, that's a lie too. Shotgun does better at both, killing varmints and also in the confines of a house. There's no comparison. Ask anybody that knows anything about guns and self-defense. They will tell you a shotgun is the best way to protect your home. And yet these lies, this paranoia, it spreads and it continues killing Americans, turning a 4th of July parade into a killing field.